Dr. Rian Voss stood knee-deep in the skeletal remains of an ancient starship, his breath fogging up the visor of his exosuit. Around him, jagged fragments of alloyed metal jutted from the frozen moon's surface, like the ribs of a long-dead beast. The cold bit into his body despite the heated layers of his suit, a grim reminder of the moon's inhospitable nature. The mission should have been routine: catalog the wreckage, scan for artifacts, and report findings. Instead, he'd stumbled upon a discovery that was anything but ordinary. In his gloved hand, the crystalline artifact pulsed with a faint, otherworldly glow. Its shape defied logic, shifting slightly when observed from different angles, as though it refused to be bound by the physical laws governing the universe. "What the hell are you?" Rian muttered to himself, holding the object up to the weak light of the twin stars above. The artifact vibrated faintly, emitting a sound just on the edge of perception, a whisper, faint and insistent, like a half-forgotten melody lodged in his brain. "Rian, do you copy?" crackled a voice through his comms. He sighed, bringing his hand to his helmet. "I'm here, Miera. What is it?" "Your life support's registering a spike. Don't tell me you're running around like an idiot without checking your oxygen levels." Rian rolled his eyes, though a grin tugged at the corner of his lips. Captain Miera Jane, his sometime collaborator and full-time annoyance, had been hired to pilot this mission. Her reputation for survival in the galaxy's most hostile sectors was second only to her reputation for nagging. "Relax, Captain," he said. "I found something. It's different." "Different how?" "Just get the sample container ready. I'll explain on the ship." He turned his attention back to the artifact. Its surface was smooth yet cold to the touch, and faint inscriptions lined its edges, jagged, almost organic glyphs that seemed to shift when he tried to focus on them. He activated the scanner on his wrist, but the readings came back scrambled. No element or energy signature matched anything in his database. "Rian," Miera cut back in, her tone sharp. "I'm detecting movement. You're not alone down there." His pulse quickened. "What kind of movement?" "Can't tell. Could be the wind kicking up debris, could be something else. Either way, get moving." He cast a wary glance over the jagged wreckage. The silence of the moon, once comforting, now felt oppressive. He shoved the artifact into his pack and began climbing back toward his rover, its headlights a faint beacon in the distance. Every crunch of his boots against the ice echoed unnaturally loud in the stillness. As he crested a ridge, he saw them. 3 figures, silhouetted against the horizon. They moved with an eerie precision, their suits glinting under the weak starlight. Rian's breath hitched. They weren't part of his team. "Miera," he hissed, "we've got company." "Copy that. I'm powering up the engines. Move fast." The figures turned in unison as though sensing his gaze. For a moment, Rian considered shouting a greeting, but something about their unnatural synchronization rooted him in place. When they began moving toward him, their strides unnervingly mechanical, he bolted. The artifact in his pack grew heavier with each step, as though resisting his attempts to flee. The whispers in his mind grew louder, an incoherent cacophony that made it hard to think. He stumbled and nearly fell as the ground beneath him gave way to slick ice. "Rian, what's your status?" Miera's voice was distant, almost drowned out by the artifact's maddening hum. "I'm running," he managed, breathless. "Get the ship ready to lift off." The figures were closing in. Rian could hear their boots crunching against the ice, impossibly fast. He reached the rover and scrambled into the driver's seat, his fingers fumbling to activate the controls. The vehicle roared to life, skidding forward as he slammed the accelerator. The ride back to the ship was a blur of adrenaline and panic. Ryan's eyes darted to the rear-view display, where the figures were still visible, their forms distorted by the rover's flickering lights. One raised a hand and a streak of energy lanced past him, narrowly missing the vehicle's rear axle. "Miera, open the damn bay doors!" he shouted as the obsidian wraith came into view. "Already on it," she snapped. "You'd better not bring any uninvited guests with you." The rover screeched to a halt inside the ship's hold, and the bay doors slammed shut behind it. Ryan tumbled out, clutching the artifact as Miera appeared at the entrance, her blaster drawn. "Explain. Now," she demanded, her eyes narrowing. "They're after this," Ryan said, holding up the artifact. Her gaze flicked to the crystal, then back to him. "And what the hell is this?" "I don't know yet." He paused, catching his breath. "But I think it's worth dying for." "Great," she muttered, holstering her weapon, "because someone clearly agrees." The ship shuddered as the figures outside began pounding against the hull. Alarms blared and the lights flickered. Miera rushed to the cockpit, barking orders to the ship's AI to engage the engines. As the obsidian wraith lifted off, Ryan secured the artifact in a containment chamber, his mind racing. The whispers had subsided, replaced by a gnawing sense of dread. He didn't know what he had found, but one thing was certain. It wasn't just valuable. It was dangerous. From the cockpit, Miera's voice cut through his thoughts. "Next time, remind me to leave you on the first desolate rock we come across." Ryan leaned back against the cold metal wall of the cargo hold, his heart pounding. He knew she was only half joking, because deep down he wasn't sure if they were running from something or heading straight toward it. The planet loomed below like a bruised wound in the void of space. Erebus 3, as it was marked in the outdated star charts, was a dark, icy world blanketed in an eternal twilight. Its thin atmosphere shimmered faintly with auroras that danced like ghosts, their colors muted and unnatural. As the obsidian wraith descended, the ship's sensors detected jagged canyons and towering spires of rock, their surfaces coated with a slick, obsidian-like sheen. The crew was tense. Dr. Rian Voss stood at the observation deck, watching the planet grow larger through the reinforced viewport. He clutched the crystalline artifact in one hand, its faint hum resonating through his bones. The whispers had started again, low and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. They seemed louder as they approached the planet, as if the relic recognized the land beneath them. Behind him, Captain Miera Jane's voice carried through the comms. "Landing gear deployed. Everyone brace for touchdown. Sana, double-check the external readings. I don't trust the atmosphere here." Dr. Sana Kryn, seated at the science station, muttered under her breath but complied. "Atmosphere's breathable if you're desperate," she said. "High nitrogen, low oxygen. But there's something else. A spore count that's off the charts." "Spore count?" Miera's voice sharpened. "Toxic?" Sana hesitated. "Unclear. Could just be dormant organic matter. But let's keep our helmets on for now." The ship shuddered as it landed, the landing struts creaking under the strain of uneven ground. Miera appeared at the entrance to the observation deck, her blaster holstered at her hip. "All right, team. We don't know what's waiting for us out there, so stay sharp. Goran, you're on point." Goran Tay, their stoic mercenary, nodded silently and hefted his plasma rifle. His cybernetic arm whirred softly as he flexed his grip. Miera turned her gaze to Rian. "And you, don't wander off. Whatever you think that thing in your hand is telling you, ignore it." Rian didn't respond. He simply slipped the artifact into his pack and followed the others toward the airlock. The landscape of Erebus 3 was haunting. The ground was slick with frost, and strange spiraling formations jutted from the earth like frozen whirlpools. The ruins appeared less than a kilometer from the landing site, their alien architecture unmistakable. They were tall, skeletal structures made of black, bone-like material. Some twisted into spires that disappeared into the gray clouds, while others formed broken arches over the rocky terrain. "This place is a graveyard," Miera muttered, scanning the area with her visor. "No signs of movement, but these structures, they're not natural." "They're organic," Sana corrected. She knelt by a fragment of the material, her gloved hand brushing its surface. Or at least partially. "Look at this. It's like petrified tissue fused with alloy. Whoever built these wasn't just engineering structures. They were growing them." Rian felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. The whispers in his head had grown louder, words still indecipherable but insistent. The artifact in his pack throbbed with a steady rhythm, and he found himself unconsciously stepping toward the ruins. "Hey!" Miera barked, grabbing his arm. "Stay with the group." "I am," Rian said, though his voice sounded distant, even to himself. "The relic, it's reacting to something here. This is where we're meant to be." "Let's just get this over with," Goran grumbled, leading the way into the ruins. The first signs of danger were subtle. Inside the ruins, the air felt heavy, oppressive, as if they'd stepped into the lungs of some massive, dormant creature. The walls were lined with strange carvings, twisting alien shapes that seemed to shift and writhe under the glow of their helmet lights. Sana stopped to examine one of the carvings, her visor scanner flickering erratically. "These markings, this isn't just art, it's a record, a warning." "Warning about what?" Miera asked, her hand hovering near her blaster. "I don't know yet." Sana's voice was tinged with both excitement and dread. "But these glyphs, they depict something predatory. A creature consuming other beings, entire colonies even." Rian's eyes followed the carvings down the length of the wall. The depictions grew more grotesque the further they went. Figures twisted into monstrous forms, their bodies fused with strange appendages. He felt a sharp pain in his temples, and the whispers in his mind grew into a deafening roar. "We need to move," he said abruptly, gripping his head. "Something's watching us." The others exchanged uneasy glances but pressed forward. The deeper they went, the more apparent it became that they were not alone. The shadows seemed to shift in the corners of their vision, and faint clicking noises echoed through the cavernous halls. Then they found the first body. It was humanoid, or at least it had been. The corpse was fused to the wall, its flesh stretched taut over the black material of the ruins. Its face was frozen in a silent scream, and its limbs had been twisted and elongated into grotesque shapes. Sana recoiled, nearly dropping her scanner. "This isn't decay," she said, her voice trembling. "It's transformation. Whatever killed them, it changes its prey." Rian knelt by the body, his stomach turning. He couldn't shake the feeling that the corpse was staring at him, its hollow eyes following his every move. "It's still alive," he whispered. "What?" Miera snapped. Not alive, Rian corrected himself, standing quickly. But it's not dead either. The artifact, it's reacting to this. Before anyone could respond, Goran froze, raising his rifle. Something's here. The sound came again, soft, rhythmic clicking, like claws tapping against stone. It grew louder, closer until a figure emerged from the shadows. It was vaguely humanoid, but wrong, its limbs unnaturally elongated, its skin a patchwork of flesh and blackened metal. Its head was tilted unnaturally, and its eyes glowed with a faint, malevolent light. "Contact!" Goran shouted, firing a burst of plasma. The creature moved impossibly fast, dodging the shots with an unnatural grace. It let out a guttural screech, its mouth splitting open to reveal rows of needle-like teeth. Chaos erupted. The team scattered, their weapons firing wildly as more figures emerged from the darkness. The creatures were relentless, their movements unnerving and erratic. One of them lunged at Goran, its claws raking across his cybernetic arm. Sparks flew as he shoved it back, but not before a jagged tendril shot from its chest, piercing his flesh. "Fall back," Miera yelled, dragging Rian by the arm. Sana screamed as one of the creatures grabbed her, its claws sinking into her suit. Miera fired a shot that sent it sprawling, but not before its claws left deep gashes in Sana's armor. They fled toward the entrance, their path illuminated by the flickering lights of their helmets. Behind them, the creature's screeches echoed, growing fainter as the ruins themselves seemed to come alive, shifting and closing off passages. When they finally stumbled back into the cold, open air, Rian collapsed to his knees, the artifact still pulsing in his pack. The whispers had stopped, replaced by a suffocating silence. Goran sat slumped against a rock, his hand pressed to the wound in his side. Black veins were already spreading from the injury, creeping up his neck like vines. "We need to leave," Miera said, her voice firm but trembling. "Now." Rian nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't escaped anything. Whatever was inside those ruins, it wasn't just alive. It was hungry. Continuation of the story, coming soon.